Worthy of the Jersey, hosted by Eric Flannery and Tim Smith.
All right, welcome everybody to Worthy of the Jersey. I am Eric Flannery along with Tim Smith. Today is June 2nd, 2020, and we're going to dive right into this. We have three coaches here with the USA basketball, the junior national team. If you haven't watched this before, Mike Jones from Dematha is our head coach of the U16, U17 team. Sharman White, head coach at Pace Academy, is an assistant coach with the U16, U17 team. I am Eric Flannery, assistant coach of the U16, U17 team. And Tim Smith, who's an assistant of mine at St. Edward High School, running this podcast. And we actually, I think, you know, we've done a few of these and all of it's been basketball talk, but we felt it appropriate and a great time for at least us to get together and just share our thoughts about what's going on in our society. We've been talking about the coronavirus for so long that we get into another area of something that's huge in our news and forefront, which it should be. And I think we just want to kind of talk as leaders of young men, leaders in our society, people that we've coached, multiracial. You know, I've been a head coach for almost 25 years now, so I can get into some of the situations I've been in, some of the ways I've handled some of the situations. I think it's nice that Sharman, Mike, and I are close enough, I think, to have a open, candid discussion about issues and how we deal with things differently or the same. And I can honestly say what I'm excited about this podcast for, and I mean this genuinely, is I'm hoping to learn something. I'm sure there are things that I have done as a coach, as a white man, that maybe I didn't realize I was doing, or saying things that maybe I didn't know I was saying. And I think the only good thing for me about this whole situation is it's starting to open up dialogue again. And as a lot of people that I've talked to, especially in the African-American community, that's what they say, that they want people to talk. And that's how you create change, is by talking about it and then trying to make that change. So, you know, with that being said, I'm just going to open it up to either Sharm or Mike if you want to make a statement, a comment, and then just kind of, you know, we can get into some leadership stuff with this, I think, which I think is really important, just sharing some of those ideas and suggestions. But, you know, I'm hurt, you know, I'm in a different psychological mood right now. I think as a white guy, some embarrassment comes out, some guilt comes out, some, you know, I just hope things change for the better comes out. A lot of different emotions come out to me, and I don't know if that's the same. I don't know if that's different for guys like you, Mike, or guys like you, Sharm. So, Mike, why don't we go to you as the head coach of our team?
I mean, it's really difficult to articulate, you know, the emotions that I think we all feel. You know, you have anger, you have frustration, you have, you know, fear. And to be honest with you, as angry as I am and as frustrated as I am, just as an American, one, and then an African American, two, I think the fear is the emotion that probably prevails over all of them. And when I say fear, I'm alluding to, like, I'm really afraid for my guys. You know, all the young people that I've coached, that I currently coach, like, I am truly afraid for them. Because they're young people. They have so much life ahead of them. And, you know, in a day and age where just acquiescing to whatever request is being made of you just doesn't seem like that's the norm. And, like, I'm afraid. Like, you know, you get a kid to go to a gym, you get a kid that just gets caught, you know, going to the store at night or something like that. And, you know, this isn't you know, our society hasn't been safe for a lot of other reasons over the years, but, you know, now it's really being put in the forefront of just, you know, what can happen when someone that you are supposed to be able to trust and it is supposed to be there to protect you and help you, when they approach you, like, you're probably more afraid than if a group of strangers walked up to you that you had no idea who they were. I think fear is the emotion I'm feeling the most right
I mean, I can echo that fear that Mike talks about. I can also echo the anger. Um, it's like a combination of them. It's not a great mix when you think about it, as a whole, because those two things can, they can drive people in different directions. And so, personally, uh, I have a son, and when I had to have this conversation with both of my kids about what's going on and trying to make them understand, because I didn't want anyone else to be able to tell them this story or tell them what I know the facts are and what I want them to know as a baseline. Didn't get too deep, but just the idea while I was talking to him and looking at my son, just looking at him like, that could be him one day. That's where the fear really rings in. And then, like Mike said, we got guys we love that they're not our biological children, that we love like our children, and we work with them every day, and we see them every day, and we want the best for them, so they're like a child to us. And so, when you see these things going on, you can only help but think about where their future lies. When this happened, I text my guys immediately, because it was a lot of hot spots here locally, and I was just like, be careful, just don't put yourself in a situation where, because things are not, this is not the norm, this is not what things should be like, but comes from a lot of anger. And so, like I said, it's tough, because I have a lot of great white friends, and I've had a lot of them to reach out, just to say, hey, I'm sorry, hey, and I'm just like, I've already vetted you. I know what kind of person you are. I don't want the pity. I just want the change. I just want change overall. And so, again, it's just, that whole aspect of just trying to make sure that uh, something positive comes out of this, something, relevant comes out of this, and it's just the timing of it is unreal. So.
Have you guys had any of your players reach out to you, or have had any communication? A lot of this is still fresh, and today is Tuesday morning. A lot of this protests and things like that have really ramped up over the weekend. But it's been about a week since George Floyd was killed, and I was just curious if there was any immediate feedback or conversations you guys had with any of your players.
Well, like Sean said, I mean, he mentioned, reaching out to his kids, like, on our Zoom call with my team. We didn't really get to talk about, hey, did you do your schoolwork this week and things like that. It immediately went to, how are you guys feeling? And, we had each and every one of them, myself and the other coaches on the call, like, we wanted them to tell us, like, what they were feeling. We wanted them to, like emotionally, how are you? Because, the male species as a whole, you're supposed to be tough. Like, you're not supposed to show emotion. That's weakness. That's what we've been taught. But, like, right now is not a time for any of that. Like, we needed our guys to be able to express to us, like, are you angry? Are you afraid? Like, what's going on between your ears right now? So that if we potentially saw any issues, or just to give them opportunity to vent. And each and every one of our players took advantage of that chance. And it was refreshing to hear, but I think it was also healthy, where, this is not about the coaches, but I think it definitely set our minds at ease just to know that, our guys are thoughtful, they do have feelings. And, this Zoom call was a comfortable enough space for them to express that to us. So, and then on a personal note, and, I don't talk about my family much, but, like, I have a stepson who's, 18, getting ready to turn 18 years old, graduate from high school. I have a daughter who I don't have the strongest relationship with, to say the least, that lives in North Carolina. And she is a huge, just social justice. Like, that's what she's into. And, I'm looking at her social media and seeing that she's very upset about all of this. And, she wants to attend rallies and things like that. So you know, I'm afraid for her because she is very outspoken. Like she doesn't bite her tongue at all, and I worry. Like I really worry. So, you know, we're not in a good place right now as a country.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't wait. As soon as this happened, like especially like after all the riots on Friday here, I reached out to my guys, and just kind of just checked in and just try to see what they were thinking. I'm planning a Zoom with them, but I want it to be player led. I just want to be in the room, kind of like what Mike was saying, because I want them to talk. I don't want to, I want to be there for, if there's a question or if there's something I need to kind of like straighten out from a standpoint of information, or, give them what I think about the whole thing. But I don't want to be like the moderator, so to speak. I want them, and that's what I've kind of put into the, the captain's mind. Like, I want you guys to lead this. I want the coaches just to be there as support more than anything, because I think them talking about it, I mean, I know as adults we got to face this, and we've got to make the decisions that's going to affect them, in reference to like voting and things of that nature. But I think we can't miss the opportunity for them to be able to speak what it is that they see in this and what they think of this, and what, because when we were younger, and probably before our time a little bit, all of us, but when the civil rights movements were going on, it was about trying to make change. And so we didn't, we weren't a part of that. We didn't see that. We didn't, witness that. But we grew up learning about it, and we knew what it was about from that information. They're getting a chance to actually live through this. And that's why I think it's so important for them to be heard and to be understood and to be, led into a situation where they know exactly what's going on.
Guys, what I love about this conversation is I'm talking to two great leaders, right? Guys who I think, black, white, and different. You guys understand how to be leaders and have led young men. That's why you're in the position that you're at right now, which is hugely beneficial to me, but to other people out there. I just want to share too, as I didn't know what to do, honestly, as I waited till yesterday. So the weekend, I was afraid to say the wrong thing. Let's just put it that way. I was afraid to give a wrong message to my guys or whatever it may be. But yesterday, what I did was I just sent out a message to every single African-American I coached over the last 25 years, which the list was long. And what surprised me and really, got me emotional was every single one of them responded. And basically all I said was, I love you guys. I stand with you. I care for you. And if you need me, you've always known that I'm here for you. And that, and that stands. And to Sharm's point too, one thing he said, basically all of them said, they love me back, but coach, you're not the one that needs to say that. We know where you stand. You've been good to us. And that obviously gave me like encouragement, but I just sat and said, well, maybe I'm not doing my job to make sure that other people understand what's going on and try to defend them or stick up for them, I should say, with other people and what other people are saying. And, I'm at a school where right now it's, my team is anywhere from 50% white to 50% black. It changes a little bit every year. I came into a school and went to a school that was 100% all white. And when I was the coach, it was 99% all white. And I was pretty much the first coach to put African Americans on the floor. And, I went through a lot of tension from my own community 25 years ago. And I went through it as kind of being a racist against white people. I got a lot of those comments, like, and I've gotten comments both ways as a coach. A lot of times it's just simply because being a parent, they want their kid to play. So they make comments about, you're treating my kid different, whatever. What do you suggest as coaches? So I know there are coaches out there you know, is there something right to say, wrong to say? Is it, you know, my whole thing is, and again, going back to what Sharm just said too, which I think is great, and both of you about the Zoom calls, you know, my first thing is always to just listen, right? Try to listen to what people are saying. And then it's my job as a leader to take what they say and make changes where necessary and to address what's necessary. And I think the suggestion of listening to your team in a Zoom call or face-to-face or whatever it is the first thing that most of us leaders should do and can do. Anything that you guys have done personally over the years of coaching that maybe you've addressed a situation racially where it's come to you or come to one of your players, you know, as an example that maybe other coaches can see or other people can see, and this is how I handled it, and this is what happened, or this is, you know, a good way or a bad way. Go ahead, Sharm.
This whole situation brings me back to when I was at Georgia State a couple of years ago, and Coach Hunter called. You know, he had the players. We had a players' lounge or whatever, locker room / lounge. But we met in there every day before practice. And so in this particular time, you know, we were getting ready for practice, but we were practicing maybe an hour later. So we were like, he called us in like an hour early, and he brought in a police officer. And I was, you know, still trying to figure out, okay, what's behind the police officer here. But he brought the police officer in to talk to our African-American players, which we probably about 95% of the team was African-American, and kind of told them like how to handle situations where if they get involved with the police, like if a police pulls you over, you know, turn your light on inside your car, put your hand up. Like I'm sitting there like, you know, are we really have to have informational sessions on this? And that's, you know, it was like a reality check for me. Because I never thought of doing anything like that with my players in high school when I was at, you know, Miller Grove. They probably needed to, but just never thought about it. And so from a leadership perspective, to see that take place and, you know, to go through that whole session, I mean, literally like 45 minutes to an hour of just different things you got to, you know, and this was from a police officer himself. And it was good, but it was also like kind of terrifying in a way. And so that right there, you know, kind of, you know, put me on a different path to this whole thing. And so as these things keep happening, I always reflect back to that. That one meeting that we had with a police officer, because I'm like, and I'm thinking myself, like, if I ever get pulled over, you know, I put my hands on the steering wheel, turn my lights on, you know, like, and just, you know, and just never thought about it. So that was something that, you know, again, just kind of led to, you know, just and it wasn't a racial thing that happened. It was just that the incident, it started that moment itself, that, you know, having to go through that and just actually learn from that. So.
Unfortunately, Sharm, your coach was being proactive in a
Yeah.
situation that he was aware of that is embarrassing to even say that has to be had, right? Yeah. Mike?
And then I know, Flan, you kind of started with the question of like, if we were talking to someone, what would we tell a white coach to say? You know, if it's one thing that I learned, or one of the things that I took from Coach Wooten was, you know, he didn't use foul language, but I mean, basically kids can sniff out bullshit really quickly. And, you know, I would just caution anybody, black, white, I don't care what color you are as a coach, to say things just because everybody else is saying. Like, you got to be genuine. Like, you can't be phony, because your kids will read right through that. Like, you know, they're walking lie detectors. Like, you can't lie to them. Because even if the lie works in the moment, if they ever find out that was not true or wasn't genuine, like, trust is one of the biggest things you can have with your team. So, you know, I would just encourage anybody that, you know, yes, reach out to your kids. Yes, check on them. Yes, do whatever you can to communicate with them, but make sure that communication is genuine and true, because you can do more damage. Like, I think we all have kids that really, really, really look up to us as, I won't say heroes, but like truly people that they respect and that they want to like follow in footsteps of. And the worst thing that a kid like that may not have a dad or may not have a male figure in their life, the worst thing you can do to them is betray them. The worst thing you can do to them is do something that loses their trust, because like you've just scarred that kid. Like he already had trouble trusting men because of whatever's happened in his life. And then to turn around to you're being the one that he does trust, and then you come with something that just they see right through. Like you can really hurt a young man and hurt him. We talk about mental health and how prevalent of a topic that is these days. Like that for young man's, of young student athletes' mental health, like just be honest with them, be true to them.
Hey, can I tag in on what Mike just said? Because that was real poignant what you said, Mike. I just, I've always said players and coaches are attached by truth and trust. And, what you just said just kind of like put that in perspective, because for young coaches, tell them the truth. Like Mike said, they'll know, they'll know the BS. Because if you tell them the truth, that allow them to be able to trust you. And if they trust you, then that's what you gotta harness and you gotta guard and you gotta protect at all costs. Because again, this is a situation that unfortunately it's not gonna go away overnight. And I don't want young people to think, or even older people to think, that it's gonna go away overnight. We're gonna take steps toward a better solution and a better progress toward it, but it's not going to go away. So the opportunity to be able to face these things and be able to handle them a different way than you might have previously, it will come. Whether you decide to make that decision to make a change and make it better, that'll be totally up to you, but it's going to come back around again.
You guys are bringing up some awesome, awesome points and awesome suggestions. I love the fact that you talked about being genuine, being honest, and being truthful, because I think as coaches, we build families, right? And it becomes a little bit, I don't want to say easier, but it does become easier in our setting at times to have these relationships, no matter what the color of the skin is of these guys, because we feel like they're our own kids. And we're with them, day in and day out, and they play for us and they play with us and they do all these things. So to have that trust, I think there's things that we say sometimes that maybe we don't intend or mean. And, we have a diversity director at our school at St. Ed's, James Knight, who does a tremendous job. I mean, but the issue for me always is he's the only African-American in our entire school, male. And we are an all-boys school of 900 and some boys, right? And so our population of African-Americans has grown to, I think we're about 15% now of the school. So we're close to 100 kids in our school. And we don't have those role models in the school, in the buildings. So, putting them on our staffs and sometimes a white coach such as myself is that role model. And I do have players that don't have fathers or have unique situations like that. So they become kind of like your sons, and you build those relationships. Do you think that part of what society needs, I guess, in general, because I've seen some people make comments about this, about just African-American teachers in, becoming more and more prevalent, and coaches and people in our position. Is that one of the solutions that maybe going forward we can have, and how do we address that? Because I've addressed it with my administration, like, hey, we need to have more presence in our building. I have assistant coaches that would love to be in the building at some point, however we make that happen. And our administration honestly just says, we don't have any that apply. Like we need to go actively, look for as many as we can. Do you think that's one, we're talking about conversations. What I'm trying to do here too as well during this conversation is think of small things or things that can help make this conversation go forward, because we all know that once we get off this podcast, the issues are still out there, right? It's not, And as Sharm said, this isn't it's going to end overnight. This is something that's lifelong. Personally, I don't know if it's ever going to be what we want it to be in our lifetime, but we can make those changes as small as they are. Do you think that's one of the changes that we can make? And is there a way to encourage that or do that? Or are there other changes in your guys' mind that you think about that can really help maybe push this thing forward other than just dialogue? We're talking about action.
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely something that is I mean, honestly, it's a small part of what can happen, but it's immediate. Like that can be done immediately. A lot of places can embrace having and go out and recruit. Like you're saying, your administration says that, you know, well, African American males don't apply to even work here. Well, then go recruit them. Like to be able to present to a population role models in the right way is something. But that's small. I mean, the whole thing needs to be done over. Like, and I mean, you can say that, but how do you do that? What does that mean? I just think that, you know, at some point in time, we've got to reboot. Like, we've got to reboot, and it starts with the youngest of young kids. You know, we can complain about the education, you know, in different areas of our country and how, you know, it's substandard to other areas. Like, how do you fix that? Like, you know, you can't all of a sudden take, you know, high school kids and advance them 3 years if they didn't get the 3 years that they needed to be at that level. But you can go back down to elementary school and kindergarten and first grade and start to teach young people, like, hey, this is the pace you have to move at. And obviously there's, like, I'm not, you know, like, I'm not the department or the Secretary of Education in this country, but like, for those people who are tasked with those things, like, figure out a way to start this again and educate everybody. And it just, it changes the mentality. Like, again, like, you know, we profit off of student athletes. Like, we have jobs because of sports. But Black kids shouldn't have to think that they have to play a sport. Black kids shouldn't have to think that they have to be in an entertainment industry to be successful in life. You know, to put doctors and lawyers and engineers and architects in front of young Black men and young Black ladies and women so that they understand that they can be this. Like, I think that's a great thing, to put Black teachers in front of them, to know that, hey, like, this person found that their purpose in life was to educate others. Like, and as an African American, that can be your goal. That, you know, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to be a teacher. I would love to hear young Black kids say that. I would love to hear, because that changes everything. And like, you know, Flan, you're talking about, like, clearly that is something that can be done. And if you start to do that at all levels, then you have these kids that can see that that's what they can become. But obviously, these are all residual things that will have an impact on law enforcement and things like that. And obviously, that is where we stand right now with the issues that we're having. So,
yeah, and I think what Flan, with you and Mike, what you're saying, I think it kind of comes out to me where we have to be intentional. You know, we have to be intentional about trying to hire more African Americans and make those, you know, credible differences, like in the classroom, and hire more African Americans as coaches. You know, just, I mean, it goes in different areas, different avenues, but I think the whole thing, we have to be intentional about it, just so that everyone, not just Black, but white, Asian, they can see the how everyone is on the same playing field, and they can see that, and they see that, they'll be part of the change, and they'll be part of what helps make the change, because they won't see no lines. They won't see any differences. They'll see, you know, instead of, like, my daughter, she attends PACE, she loves it, but she's the only African-American girl in her classroom. And that's you know, for me and my wife, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow sometimes, because, you know, we want her to see other, you know, like mates, you know, so that she won't see a one-sided deal, you know. But even Pace is making those steps to try to fix that, because that's, you know, we don't want that to be her reality, you know, here at Pace, you know. And so I just think you have to be intentional, and it might be tough in some instances, but I think if there's really going to come about a change, you have to be intentional.
It's a great point, and empathy is such a big part of what we do, and making change, trying to put yourself in somebody else's shoes, which we cannot. And I've never ever tried to put myself in a black man's shoes, because I've never walked that, and I even, you know, I tell kids that I'm open and honest. Like, listen, I'm here for you for whatever you need. I'm not going to pretend to be somebody I'm not. One of the discussions I had with our diversity director, as a matter of fact, yesterday, because I went in and I was feeling, you know, bad. You know, I was feeling, what can I do? And I did want to sit down with him just to get some ideas. And we had an open discussion similar to what we're having. And, you know, one of the things I brought up is probably one of the mistakes I make as a coach too, is I said, listen, there's a lot of times with my own team that we probably go a year, or we go months, or we go weeks, whatever, without talking about anything controversial, anything diversity wise, right? Like, sometimes I feel as a white man, if I bring it up, it's going to start and go somewhere where I don't want it to go. There's going to be some uncomfortable discussions going on if I just bring it up out of the blue, or I bring it up in our sessions before. And I don't want to stir anything up if things are going well. And he just made the comment to me, he's like, Flan, that's exactly what we need to have happen. Change does not happen without those conversations. And that struck me as somebody coaching for 30 years now, that I never thought of it that way, that I never thought of just sitting there. I was doing something wrong for these kids and for building this discussion. So Mike, go ahead.
I mean, think about it, Flan. Like, we talk about how do your players get better? By being uncomfortable. Like, I mean, we preach that. That's a pillar of, you know, all of our programs. That's a pillar of USA basketball. You have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Then, I mean, life is the same way. Like, how can we progress? How can we get better? Like, it requires you to be uncomfortable. And I think people have to realize that, you know, all of us. I don't care what color you are. Like, there will be no progress. There will be no growth unless we are all made to be uncomfortable, because that's the only way change happens.
And I just think that's the issue with this conversation, because I've heard these conversations before in the past about whenever something bad happens or something dramatic happens, yes, we have these conversations, but are we willing as leaders and as coaches to have these uncomfortable conversations a month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, when things aren't going on? And I think that's the one kind of pledge that I've recently made to myself, is I am going to make an intentional, conscious effort to bring up these uncomfortable discussions and topics, even if it means disrupting the team a little bit or doing whatever. And I just thought that was something that I learned in a very, just yesterday, that sure, maybe I've thought about before, but I never made an intentional effort to do this. And being uncomfortable, I mean, guys, this podcast, in a way, this morning, I'm just thinking, like, here I am. I know the situation that we're in right now. It's very volatile. It's very, part of me doesn't want to say things that are incorrect and whatever. And we're here talking to two friends of mine. It becomes a little bit uncomfortable just because you don't want to disrespect anybody, right? You don't want to say the wrong thing. And I just think we need more of this, though. We need more of, like, I would appreciate any time when I'm with somebody that they just slap me upside the head and say, Flan, that's wrong. Don't do this. And I'll just share one story. Back in my early days, when I was 24 years old and a head coach, I had a great player who was African-American and one of the first African-Americans in our school. And we were outside running, and Tim was actually on this team. We were outside running sprints and running around the track outside. And all I did, I was yelling, this is, come on, boys, let's go, let's go. And the kid stopped. He walked over, and to his credit, he pulled me aside. He said, Coach Flan, I just want you to know that using that term is hurtful. I resent that. And, like, I know you don't know, but I just want you to understand that as a white man, using that with me is something that you got to be careful. And from that day on, I never used it again. And you have to listen to those comments. And sometimes that's what I want, is I want somebody to again, slap me upside the head and say, this is not what you're supposed to do. Or this is, what you said was hurtful. And when we need more of those conversations, in my opinion, to just keep this conversation going. And I think a lot of us feel, sometimes all of us, that, we just don't want to say the wrong thing. And we want to, and we're worried about the consequences when we need to be able to go ahead and say it and somebody correct us when we're wrong. And I don't know what you guys feel about that, or if you've had one of those moments too.
Yes.
I mean,
oh, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead, Sean.
It's kind of the way you're describing that. I think I brought this up when we had our last call, USA call, and it's funny I brought that up, and then a couple weeks later it's kind of flipped or what have you. But when I coached at Miller Grove, I coached basically 100% African American young men. That's all I knew. I even in school before that, 100% African American young men. So when I got to Pace, that number was definitely not 100%. It was more like maybe 40% to 50%. And for me, the uncomfortable part for me was I didn't want to say the wrong thing that I probably would have said to the African American. And so I get what you're saying. And so this has been a learning process for me in a good way, like you said, uncomfortable, but yet I'm learning how to, to navigate and be able to get my way through it. And it's been great for me as a person to grow through it. And I've picked up even more white American friends in the process, and more people that I've connected and networked with, just because, something that Mike said, just being genuine, just trying to treat all the kids the same. I didn't want to treat one group differently than the other group, because I felt like if I do that, now I'm drawing a line. And I committed myself to treat everyone the same. And I think the kids saw that, and they bought that. And they bought into whatever it is that I told them that we would need to do to be successful, or whatever it needed to do to be a great person. They bought into it. And, we were able to win, and we won a championship, all that good stuff. But the more important part of that was that they didn't feel like I was treating them differently than I was treating the African-American kids on the team. And so I definitely understand, when you say that from that perspective, because I just lived that basically this past 2 years, basically.
Got anything, Mike?
Can't say it any better than that. I mean, that's a perfect example. I mean, that's why, I'm so appreciative of the group of coaches that I consider my friends, because you guys and all the other, from our family, we've all been through. We've all had our battles. I feel like, I'm blessed because I work at a place that is incredibly diverse. We have, racial diversity. We have socioeconomic diversity. We have, geographic diversity. We have, just the purpose in them being in the school. Like, some people want to be like the top musicians. Some are like just really into science. They're science scholars. Some are athletes. Some, like, our school has just embraced diversity to the core of the word. And, I say it from, not just a racial thing, but, I look at kids that I coach that are, the family struggling. Like, they're just above the poverty level. And they're, they're able to go to the Dematha because of financial aid. And then I might coach a kid who lives in a $4 million house, but we're on the same team. They're getting the same education. They're afforded the same opportunities and exposure to things, at least while they're with us. When they go home, it's something totally different. A kid that played for me way back in the early part of the 2000s. I remember a summer league game one summer. So it's the middle of June or July. and I've got to take him home from our summer league game. Had never taken him home. I knew where he lived, but I mean, it's not a neighborhood that I hung out in, so I didn't know much about it. And like literally, there's an all-star game. He plays an all-star game. He does a couple media things after. One of my best players. And I go to take him home, and it's getting close to midnight. And I go on the street, and like you would have thought it was not 12 midnight. You would have thought it was 12 noon. Like there were people everywhere. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? And he's just like, hey, coach, I'm going to need you to go up to the end of the block, turn around, and come back and drop me off on the way back out. And I'm just like, what do you mean? He was like, coach, just go up, turn around, and come back. So I do that. And then, but you can see as we're driving, everybody's looking, and Jeff rolls down the window and kind of raises his hand just so people know it's him. And when we get back, he's like, yo, so when I get out, I need you to just go. And I'm just like, all right. So I do what he says. The next day, I'm just like, hey, man, like, what was that all about? And he was like, coach, car, you don't have DC tags. Like, you're from Maryland. They don't know you. Like, I can't guarantee you would have got out of this neighborhood, like, without somebody stopping you. And then who knows what happens. And to know that he grew up in that environment, you know, that's the only house he had ever lived in. Like, and so he's been in there since he was a baby. And this is one of the sweetest kids, one of the toughest kids I've ever coached, but one of the sweetest kids with a great heart. Like I felt like I never knew that growing up. Like I lived in a much different community than that. And like that struck me. And I've never looked at any of my players like I truly understand what they go through every day. So like I can definitely understand like I think how a lot of people feel right now because we don't know. We truly don't know.
I think that's a great message too about we don't know. And Mike, you and I have almost the identical type of school. You know, we have the high end to the low as far as socioeconomic. I have the exact same story in the city of Cleveland, dropping off a kid and the player just told me, coach, being a white guy in this neighborhood, it was 1 o'clock in the morning, just drop me off and go and text me when you get out so I know you got out safe. And that was to me just, oh my God, you know, but I never knew that. I never been through that before. Have been since a few times, but it's just different. And that's part of, I think, what we are talking about here as leaders is opening that dialogue to listen to what other people are going through and try to figure out a way to move forward and try to, going back to the word empathy or just understanding, can you have that type of understanding? And I think that's what good human beings do. But we also know that that's not prevalent out there at all, right? It's the frustrating part for me is knowing that we can move forward like we keep talking about, but you still will always see people at one extreme that are going to, no matter what you say, what we do, whatever, are going to be the bad apples, bad examples of stuff. And I think we talked a little bit before we got on here about media. Some like those people will be the ones that are put on social media or whatever as representing everybody. And that's where I feel is the hard issue of going forward. How do we deal with that? How do we deal with the small percentage of people that are representing us, whether it's white, black, police, non-police, teachers, coaches? How do we work against that? You know, and is there an answer to that? You could say no. That's good. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the $1 million question, kind of, Eric. I mean, you know, if we kind of knew that.
I'm just trying to strike conversation about it, and not that like you know, there is no answer. I think there's no positive answer. And Tim, I don't know, you know, you kind of sitting back a little bit if there's something that you have that maybe we should talk about or a point that.
I mean, I really appreciate the conversation you guys are having. In my life outside of basketball, my professional life, I work in finance, but the industry I work in is mostly low income and affordable housing, and other stuff that would be, you know, called community development. And, you know, just to the point that you guys have made, In the work that I do and the things that we see, one of the things that is most important in changing outcomes, which is I think what we're talking about, is getting rid of segregation. And I actually posted something on social media that was a couple years old, but I think prevalent given everything that's what's happening. And I think if you guys are talking about the change that we hope to see from things that are going on, and it's not going to be immediate, it's not going to be quick, it's not going to be easy. But if you're thinking more big picture and what are the things I want to support, Coach made a great point about, we need to have inclusion and we need to have representation where we work, where, and frankly, where we live too. And also, I'm cognizant of kind of where we send our kids to school. And I know it's mostly white right now. But there's other choices and things that we do with our children. And just, beyond that, the types of teams they're on, the type of environments we put them in. And I think that's where hopefully long-term this conversation continues to switch. So, so I keep coming back to that as far as the conversations you kind of hear from kids that are probably more hopeful than what we see from society. The work that's being done on the ground level, that the need is so much greater, but the work is still happening. And I'm fortunate enough to see it in my professional life where resources and things are going into housing, they're going into education, they're going into things that I think make tangible differences. And then beyond that too, like, I lead a board of a nonprofit here in Cleveland. And that's something that again, I've been cognizant of, and I've made a challenge to our board this year, is that we need to do better of having representation from not just, people that work at good companies across the city, but we need representation from the lower income communities. We need representation from the nonprofits that serve all these different parts of our communities, because I think we, like it or not, social media and everything else brings us to a part where we're all heard, and things can kind of spread like wildfire, both good and bad. So inclusion is going to be a part of our lives, no matter what part of the country or world that you're in. And the better that we get out in front of that and act as leaders, in my opinion, the better we can do in the long term. The short term obviously is painful. And this week is showing that. So that's my little pulpit. One of the things I was curious in hearing you guys talk is, I'm wondering kind of what messages you're hearing from your kids, and even a step on that, like what are you hearing from your kids that makes you optimistic, or might be something that you guys are hearing that an outsider might not typically might not think would be something that a 15, 16 or 17-year-old kid, particularly an African-American kid of that age, might, the type of thoughts that they're having, but that you guys are hearing that might be good to share with the audience.
Again, the thing that I get out of my conversation with the kids is, and I kind of mentioned it before, like I'm proud that they're comfortable enough to share their emotions with us, with me, with their other teammates. But then also, I think the one thing that is more broad than that is, pretty much to a player, they all expressed disappointment in some of the looting and things like that are going on, like in their communities, or that they see on TV. But like not just that disappointment, but also wanting to redirect that energy into something that can be more impactful. And, for young people to truly be embracing something that's not selfish. Like they're not just thinking of themselves. They're not just thinking of their family. Like they're literally thinking of everyone. And I'm proud of my guys for having that type of mentality, that it's not, one of the things that we deal with all the time, like, kids, especially at the age we coach, like it's always about them. like always. And I mean, it's just the way it is. And to hear our guys express something that has that is well beyond them, I'm really proud of that. And if they are an indication as to how the majority of young people are thinking, then hey, we've got a chance. We really have a chance, and we've got to seize the moment, though. We've got to seize the moment. We've got to encourage them. We've got to build them. We've got to push them to be the voice. I mean, if you look at gun control back when, all the school shootings and things like that, and you had all of these young people that started to step up after the school shooting in Florida. It took young people to do that. We've got to push them. It can't just go by the wayside. It can't be something that everybody's talking about now in the moment, and then 2 weeks from now, we're right back to what normal was.
It's two words that come to mind when that kind of, how when we're coaching, the kids always say, "I got you." We always say, "I got you, get you beat." Don't tell me you got me, because that's gonna get me beat every time. But after having a few conversations with a few of our guys, and to hear them say, "I understand," and it goes in different areas. They say, "I understand what leadership means in a situation like this and lack of it. I understand the anger, I understand the looting, even though I know it's not right." So when they tell me they understand, see, if I'm talking to them and say, "Yes, I understand," I get a reassurance that they listen, and I'm hoping that they listen enough so that they'll be able to process what it is that I've said, or that's being, not this media narrative, not the, but the truth. And so those words kind of give me that assurance, or that just somewhat of a comfort to know that, they're listening and they're processing it, and they do kind of, and like Mike said, we always talk about being on a team is about being something, bigger than yourself. And I think Mike hit it perfectly. Now this is really not about you. It's really about something bigger than you. And it's going to take an effort that's bigger than you to be able to make this thing change.
Great. I mean, I love that, Charm. The understanding part is huge. And we're going to finish on one last, I don't know, maybe it's controversial, but it just popped into my head as we were talking, and as I'm looking at Mike's background, and I have to personally get out of here, so I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm the one that's the reason this conversation is going to end. But let me ask you guys this, and I just want to share maybe what I did. So going back to the Colin Kaepernick, and I don't want to necessarily get into him, but we're coaches for USA Basketball. And back when all of this went down with Kaepernick, we had open and honest dialogue and conversation as a team. And the one thing I told my guys during that conversation was, personally, I don't think taking a knee or anything is the right way to protest. Obviously I have an affiliation with USA Basketball, but we went into a lot more. We discussed what, representing the flag meant. There's more to it. People, the military, what have you. But I also told my team at that point, if that's what all of us want to do, if that's the way you want to demonstrate, we'll talk it out and we'll figure out. Or is there something else that we can do? Or does anybody have something to say, or do we not want to do anything at all? And our guys just came up with a solution, and they talked it out, and they all were on the same page once the conversation was had. My point is that we had that conversation. We had the conversation about what was going on. We had the conversation about, if we want to stand for something and make a point, this is what we are going to do as a team. Not that Johnny all of a sudden, in spur of the moment is going to take a knee and nobody knew it was happening, and he wants to stand out as an individual, because kind of what you said, Mike, it is about them sometimes. So there you might have a kid who thinks, hey, I can get some attention for myself, so I'm going to do something. to make a stand. What would be your stance, or how would you address if your kids or your team, and I know we're not in season, but came to you now and said, hey, Coach White, Coach Jones, I think I want to take a knee, or I want to do something, I want to demonstrate somehow with our team. Have you guys addressed that in the past? And the reason I'm bringing this up is more just suggestions to other coaches about how it should be addressed or can be addressed. And it doesn't mean what I did was the right way, and it doesn't mean even what you guys are going to say is the right way. But I think it's just good to hear how other people have dealt with these situations. Charm?
I mean, I can go back to the Kobe Bryant, his passing. And it's kind of similar because, not similar in stature of what's going on, but just how you bring a team together, how you use a situation like that, and because what you really want is whatever, like if one kid or whatever you want everyone to be on the same page, or want everybody to be, and that's just the nature of us as coaches. We know what it takes to be successful, and we know that everybody has to be on the same page. But using the Kobe Bryant incident for our team, it was, I think, the Friday after his passing, and we had a game. And so one of the players on the team said, "Coach, I'm gonna wear my Kobe Bryant, because we got a team shoe, and everybody wears the same team shoe. And, every game is deciding what pair we're gonna wear. But we're gonna wear the same one." So he said, "I want to wear my Kobe Bryant." I said, "Well, I don't have no problem with that, but I need you to see if everyone can wear their Kobe Bryants, or wear some form of Kobe. I don't care what kind they are. I don't we don't have to be the same that night. We all wear." And so what he took from that was, whatever we do, we got to do it together. And I've always said, we don't have to agree in this locker room, but when we walk out, we're all going to be on the same page. And that goes for coaches, that goes for players. And so I would tell a young coach that if a kid say, "Look, Coach, I want to take a knee," I would challenge him to get everybody on the same page. Try to get everyone. If we're going to do it, let's do it all together. Whatever we do, let's do it together. That means we're really sticking with each other. That means we're really side by side. And that's just, again, that's just how I see it. And that's the way I would, approach it. But that's how I would look at it.
How about you, Mike?
That's a great answer, Sean. I'm gonna do the best job I can here to keep this, first of all, short, but then also not feel like I just got, called to the altar by my preacher and start preaching. I truly believe that there's many things in life that you're able to do individually, and like it's your purpose, like you have to do it. You're standing up for yourself. When you agree to be on a team, like every decision you make has to be about a team. There's no time for individualism in that. Like it's just not. Like even in situations like this, and I totally agree with Sean. Like if you're gonna do something like that, like do it for everybody. Do it with everybody. And the one thing that I would say is this, and this is so important to me, and I think it's truly relevant to today's climate. I'm trying not to curse. Don't do stuff because it's popular. Don't do stuff. Don't put on your social media Black Lives Matter just because everybody's doing it. Like, be thoughtful. Like, if you're going to put it up there, mean it. If you're going to kneel, mean it. Like, mean it. Don't do something because this is going to get me attention or this is what everybody's doing. Like, understand, if you make any decision to do anything, understand why you made that decision. And like Sean said, like, explain it to me. Tell me why. You want to kneel tonight? Okay, I'm going to kneel with you. But tell me why we're kneeling. Well, I see everybody else doing it. Oh, because this, like, what is the purpose that you plan to get? Do you want attention from this or do you want change from this? Like, and you have to make sure that, again, young people, we are even as adults, we're so driven by what is popular. We're so driven by what society says. Which, like, no, that's not being thoughtful humans. That's not. Like, you have to make decisions for yourself or for your team or for the people that you affect. Make those decisions because this has been thought out and this is what is right. Not because, hey, this is what the popular opinion is. And I swear I'm getting ready to, so I'm going to stop there.
Woo.
But you have to do things because it's the right thing to do. And be willing to, if you have an opinion, be willing to explain what that opinion is. Not just because.
Hey, thank you for sharing. We should have started the show with you on the pulpit preaching, because that would have got you fired up and us fired up. And
Yep.
that is a great way. It's a great way to end this. It's a great way to finish this up, because I know, maybe our next podcast we'll get into it even more if we want, or more time. I do want to share just this, because this hit me, Mike, and I apologize for sharing this out to the public. But Mike Jones, we have a group text amongst the USA coaches, which is a great group of guys. There's about 20 of us who get together every Wednesday on Zoom, and we go through these meetings. But I think it's something that hit me too a little bit, Mike, when you said, in order to be the best, especially during this time, we cannot only use wins and losses to measure success. We have to fully embrace the responsibility that comes with leading young people and the impact that we can have on them. And I thought that was really impactful. Like, that's, we are successful coaches in a lot of ways because we won a lot of games, but is that how we measure success? And I don't think any of us do. And I think that's the important message, that the ultimate message as a coach is, how do you measure success? And if it's building great young people, I think you are a successful coach. And I think we can kind of leave it at that. So thanks for watching. Thanks for sharing. Sharman, Mike, appreciate your friendship. And thank you for being on. And I'm sure we'll see you tomorrow on the Zoom call, but hopefully we do this again and get back to some, I know personally, I got camp starting up. I got some, AAU things. It's crazy how things are changing so fast in other ways too in our lives.
And you got the TBT, baby. Basketball tournament.
It's not, we got to get in. We ain't getting in. There's like 20. So Tim, I don't know if there's anywhere to, you want to share any, like where to look this stuff up, or any final thoughts?
Yeah. So we'll obviously post this on YouTube and all your favorite podcast apps. We've done a few tremendous episodes with this group already this summer, or spring, feels like summer. And those are all up there. We'll try to keep following up with you guys. Just to echo what Eric said, sincerely appreciate the conversation, your guys' time and your willingness to do this. One of the highlights of 2020 for me, and a lot of lowlights, is being able to do this with you guys and getting a Zoom friendship with Sharman and Coach Jones. So I can't thank you guys enough. Can't thank you for the perspective and your time. Yeah, I think, for me, it's been a weird week, a tough week. There's been a lot of disappointment and sadness, but then, you hear perspective of leaders and what you guys are hearing from your players and young people. And that brings optimism and hope. So I hope those messages came across to our conversation today. So we'll continue to stick at it and keep bugging these guys so we can keep having these conversations. We got to talk about Coach Jones' great documentary on Showtime that was up a week or two ago, Basketball County, if you haven't seen it yet.
And we got to talk about this golf match.
Okay. Well, there you go.
And clearly, Flannery's going to have to give us at least two aside, man. Like
my handicap's gone up, so I'm gonna
79,
build it up, and then we'll be all right. All right, fellas, we'll see you.